Reading Canto 3, Chapter 28, text number 3. 3:28, 3. Gramyam dharma nivittischa moksha dharma ratistata mitamedyadanam shashvat vivikta kshema sevanam gramya dharma nivittischa moksha dharma ratistata mita medyadanam shashvat vivikta kshema sevanam. Other chant. Gramya dharma nivrittischa moksha dharma ratistata mita medyadanam shashvat vivikta kshema sevanam. Gramya dharma nivrittischa moksha dharma ratistata mita medyadanam shashvat vivikta kshema sevanam. Gramya, conventional. Dharma, religious practice. Nivrittihi, ceasing. Cha, and. Moksha, for salvation. Dharma, religious practice. Ratihi, being attracted to. Tata, in that way. Mita, little. Medya, pure. Adanam, eating. Shashvat, always. Vivikta, secluded. Shema, peaceful. Sevanam, dwelling. Translation: one should cease performing conventional religious practices and should be attracted to those which lead to salvation. One should eat very frugally and should always remain secluded so that he can achieve the highest perfection of life. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. It is recommended herein that religious practice for economic development or satisfaction of sense desires should be avoided. Religious practices should be executed only to gain freedom from the clutches of material nature. It is stated in the beginning of Srimad Bhagavatam that the topmost religious practice is that by which one can attain to the transcendental devotional service of the Lord without reason or cause. Such religious practice is never hampered by any impediments, and by its performance one actually becomes satisfied. Here, this is recommended as moksha dharma, religious practices for salvation or transcendence of the clutches of material contamination. Generally, people execute religious practices for economic development or sense gratification, but that is not recommended for one who wants to advance in yoga. Paragraph. The next important phrase is mita medyadanam, which means that one should eat very frugally. It is recommended in the Vedic literatures that a yogi eat only half what he desires according to his hunger. If one is so hungry that he could devour 1 pound of foodstuffs, then instead of eating 1 pound, he should consume only half a pound and supplement this with 4 ounces of water. 1/4 of the stomach should be left empty for passage of air in the stomach. If one eats in this manner, he will avoid indigestion and disease. The yogi should eat in this way, as recommended in the Srimad Bhagavatam and all other standard scriptures. The yogi should live in a secluded place where his yoga practice will not be disturbed. Om Jnana Timirandasya Gananjana Salakaya Chakshur Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. A little review, because this is just the beginning part of chapter 28, Kapila's instructions on devotional service. In the latter section of chapter 27, after describing in great detail the Sankhya Yoga system, he has described the process of meditation, dhyan. And he warned at the end of the chapter that meditation process, fixing the mind on supersoul, should not be done for the purpose of acquiring mystic powers. Meaning that many practitioners of that process, that's the perk, that's the thing that they're inspired to attain. For some reason, attaining some mystic power means something to them. They'll get honor, or they'll get something unusual, and they want that. So don't aspire like that. And then beginning of chapter 28, same message is repeated. It's still the focus. I'll read what the verse says. I shall now explain to you the system of yoga, the object of which is to concentrate the mind. By practicing this system, one can become joyful and progressively advance toward the path of the absolute truth, indicating the Paramatma feature is not the Bhagavan feature, because it's certainly part of the path of the absolute truth. Or there are two types of transcendentalists that are commonly expressed. One is those who have realized Brahman, and those who have realized Bhagavan. And those that have realized Brahman can include, in this case it does include, those who are meditating on the supersoul. So they're meditating on the supersoul, but their objective in the beginning stage may be, or commonly is, to realize Brahman, or is the path of the absolute truth. And then there's characteristics of those that are accomplished, or striving for at least, meditation upon the absolute truth, or meditation upon Brahman, or the Paramatma meditation that leads to realization of Brahman, Brahma Sukh. And that's a transcendental position, yet it's not complete, indicated by its leading to the path of the absolute truth. It's leading, the paths of higher elevated consciousness, or the path of yoga, leads to Bhagavan. Although commonly those who are interested in meditation, in the standard sense, not just the everyday marketplace meditation, but the standard Vedic meditation, it's supersoul. But then, by hearing from the right sources, one can understand, wait a minute, supersoul is an expansion of the original personality of Godhead, who is Bhagavan, and therefore Paramatma, or supersoul, the Lord of the heart. Although Krishna says, I am situated in the heart of every living being, Sarvasya Chaham Hridhi Sanivishto, but that how he's situated is his expansion. it immature knowledge can be misleading. Even with good intention, it can be misleading. And mature knowledge, it won't make that mistake. It won't be misleading. So to say Krishna is in the heart and saying Paramatma is in the heart, or the Paramatma features in the heart and Bhagavan features in the heart, they're not contradictory, but Bhagavan is present by his expansion. So I'm situated in the heart because Krishna is speaking in Bhagavad Gita, the first person, singular, aham. So the path of the absolute truth by the process of meditation. Again, the chapter title is Kapila's Instructions on Devotional Service. So there's this sequence of stages of focus on Prakriti and the source of Prakriti being the Supreme. And though there's creation and there's Prakriti, but Prakriti should not be seen separate from its source. Material consciousness, Prakriti is seen separately from its source. There is no sense of source. It says Prakriti, nature and the laws of nature, and that's it. That's it. And then the theist recognizes Prakriti, the laws of Prakriti, and the lawmaker and the law enforcer, and etc. And the enjoyer of sacrifices, offering things unto the Supreme, or the object of meditation for those who are meditating on features of the Supreme within material nature, like opulences of the Absolute, or the universal form, or something or something. The power of nature, the beauty of nature. Where does that power and beauty come from? From the powerful and from the beautiful. So theism of any type, or spirituality of any type, is going to lead to Bhagavan. Then there's authorized processes that can lead to Bhagavan realization, and others that are going to confuse the person who's hearing and trying to follow. This verse, text 3, is speaking about references made directly to the Vedas, and the reference that's made to the Vedas is specifically the Karmakanda section of the Vedas. Although he's not using the word Karmakanda, he's prescribed duties or religious duties that are conventional, like popular and abundant and everyday available, that people that do something to get something. And that whatever that sense of observance, the sacrifice, the ritual, the mantra, the this and that, is to achieve some upgrade in one's material existence in this life and or the next. It's an investment in the future upliftment to a higher status of material enjoyment, karmakanda. So that's conventional religious practices should be ceased, and then making a different choice, attracted to those which lead to salvation. In other words, the four, Dharma, Artha, Kama. Dharma, Artha, Kama. So don't follow the Dharma that has the purpose of Artha And the advantage of artha is kama. So that there's abundance of dharma, such dharma. And when people that are not, again, people not mature or not discriminating, they hear this or that or the other, they like. Because the promise is there's some perk, there's some benefit on the material plane, the conventional kind of religious practice that provides. And it may not be shouting from the rooftops, I want, and so I'm going to do this because I want. But it's implicit, if not explicit. In some cases, it's explicit. You do this, you get this. You do that, you get that. You do the other, you get the other. And then you select for the menu or combination. And then you lead a religious life. That's the conventional. But then the fourth, moksha. And then comes different definitions of what moksha might be. There's the material side. We're covering prayers of Lord Brahma, and he explicitly states in one of his prayers, this conventional idea, it doesn't use the word, the adjective conventional, but the conventional sense of liberation is another illusion, as much as the senses and the object of the senses and in trying to enjoy the senses through those objects. It's illusion. There's no happiness. It's the appearance of something, but it's not what real happiness is. There's a buzz, and that's called happiness. And following the buzz comes some suffering, explicit suffering. So that buzz or happiness is a lure to trap one. The example is given of a bumblebee collecting pollen from a lotus, and when the sun sets, characteristically, the petals of the lotus will close, and sometimes the bee gets stuck inside the lotus when the lotus closes, and he can't get out. So those that are attracted by the honey or the potential honey of material life are trapped like the honeybee when in night falls and the lotus closes, and they can die inside the petals of the lotus. So similarly, the allure of happiness through senses and sense objects is quite common, and there's religious practices that explain, encourage, do this, you get a better version of this. You do that, you get a better version of that. An elevation to heavenly planets after this life. And it works. And therefore people, they see that it works, and so they like to do it because they like sense gratification. But then that's a substantial part of the Vedas, because it's the desire tree. It's supplying the fruits for those that want those kinds of fruits. But the advocacy of Kapila Dev to Devahuti is aspire for those religious activities that bring liberation, and then there's different categories of liberation. One of the standard is cessation of pursuit of material enjoyment. But that's negation of misery. Two examples that Prabhupada has given. One example is bang your head against the wall and you stop banging your head against the wall. That's Brahmasukha. Or another is the punishment that comes from material life, the punishment of an old style punishment. A person is held by the hair and is dunked in water as if they're drowning, and when they're flailing their arms, the person is pulled up above the surface of the water. They can take a breath and then back down again. The circumstance of material life is not a happy one. And the happiness is like those two examples. It's not what happiness is. The diminishing of material suffering is not what happiness is. Definition by negation is not what happiness is. It's not what spirituality is, and therefore it's a type of illusion. It's not what real happiness is. And then what is real happiness? That's the right question. So that's where Kapila Dev is explaining to his mother. The circumstance, step back, the circumstance is Devahuti is feeling very distressed because she was deeply attached to her husband, who took a pledge from Devahuti's father, Swayambhuva Manu, that when there's a son of age, then I'm going to leave home. The home was in the forest, but that's okay. He's going to leave home. And he left home. And then there's Kapila, who's not going to stick around. And she knows it, and so she's in great distress. So help mitigate my distress. So he is giving her idea not just mitigation of distress, but achieving the reality of pure devotional service. So that's through the lens or the doorway of Sankhya as the foundation for knowledge and detachment, and with that knowledge and detachment, then hearing topics of transcendence, ultimately hearing the Srimad Bhagavatam, or hearing the glories of the personality of Godhead. That easily can carry one beyond liberation. But here, in this verse, he's encouraging her to strive for those religious practices that lead to liberation, because detachment is helpful. Detachment from material attraction is more than helpful. It's essential. Say it the other way. As long as one maintains attraction from material sense happiness, one isn't going to progress very far, or spiritual progress is blocked. Then comes this eating frugally. And it's simple. I remember being trained in this principle, the half, 1/4, 1/4 formula. And other times Prabhupada would say for new people, eat up to your neck. In other words, take prasadam, because better to have that sense satisfaction than the sense satisfaction that comes into the lives of people that don't satisfy their tongue with prasadam. Purification will come, even if it's overindulgence. But for the yogi, then there's 1/2, 1/4, 1/4. So that good digestion, health, and following, in general, following the standards of the Vedas lead to both proper functioning of the body and good health overall. The Vedic, the practice given in the Vedas for how to lead one's life, very comprehensive and very effective for a happy life. Now, that's happy life in a place that's full of misery. It means, let's say, that's just the healthy life means I don't have to spend so much time dealing with bad health if I'm healthy, because bad health can be, all-consuming, and some persons have chronic bad health, and it's difficult. It's inhibiting to spiritual practice and spiritual well-being. So, life symptoms or systems that are Vedic or health-inducing, that's good. And regulate one's mind by regulating one's senses in these ways. So the advocacy, one more time, the advocacy in the verse is liberation. The advocacy in the verse is not health. But if your target is liberation, then you'll do those things that lead to good health, because when your body is healthy and strong, you can proceed more effectively and fully energized towards the goal, the absolute truth goal. So in the last point, in the progressive steps, like a ladder and rungs of the ladder, the lower steps are included in the final step. You do if the goal is clear, even when you're doing transversing the lower steps, it's part of the goal, and one doesn't see it as doesn't see it otherwise. There's steps that help me attain the goal. Kapila's instructions are nice. They're quite analytical, which is fine, and practical in many cases, most cases. Not just philosophical and analytical, but very practical. Okay. See if there's some discussion.
Hare Krishna Guru Maharaj, thank you for your class. It seems to me that in this chapter, Kapila Dev is describing how one can become transcendentally situated in the Supreme Brahman, and from there after, to attain towards the platform of pure devotional service.
Mm-hmm.
So, my understanding, just my confusion is, why is such understanding necessary without, why can't the instructions just be how to attain, about devotional service directly rather than this roundabout
And the answer
manner?
is, some persons aren't ready. You give them the direct, and they throw their hands up in the air. I can't do this. give them something that's a step in the direction of, I think I can do that. It leads to pure, but it's not so demanding for a person that's not ready. Prabhupada gives an example. Supposing you say, touch your nose. Boop. And somebody said, no, I don't want to touch my nose like that. I want to do that. So they can do it indirectly or in steps in the direction of. And it's fine because they're different people with different capacities and different interests.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll end. See the Prabhupada Ki Jai.